Hi, everyone. Welcome to the EO Wonder Podcast. I'm your host, Kalika Yap, bringing you stories and insights from extraordinary entrepreneurs who've carved their own paths to success and beyond. Today's guest is someone who's a true expert in helping entrepreneurs create lives that are rich beyond money. Noah Rosenfarb is the founder of Freedom Family Office and a seasoned wealth coach with over 2 decades of experience. He's an EO member from the South Florida chapter, a YPO Mosaic member, and a serial entrepreneur who's built, sold, and invested in more than 50 real estate acquisitions valued at nearly $1 billion. Wow. But what sets Noah apart isn't just his impressive track record, it's his passion for guiding high-performing entrepreneurs toward financial freedom while balancing the qualitative and quantitative aspects of wealth. He's here to share actionable strategies on everything from reducing taxes and building passive income to creating a meaningful legacy. In this episode, we're going to cover how to truly become rich beyond money. We're going to cover game-changing strategies for entrepreneurs as it relates to taxes, estate planning basics, and why life insurance still matters for rich families. Plus, Noah's going to share his unique approach to generating infinite returns through apartment investments. So if you've ever wondered how to level up your financial success or prepare for a life-changing business exit, this episode is for you. So let's get started. Welcome to the podcast, Noah.
What a nice introduction. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, how's Florida today?
Florida's beautiful, sunshine and palm trees, and had a nice walk in the morning. Always a good reason to move to Florida is the sunshine, but a better reason might be the taxes.
True, true. And that's what we're going to be diving into. Here in the Pacific Palisades in California, it is a little chilly. I grew up in Hawaii, so chilly is like, I don't know, 68 degrees. What's the temperature? What's the temperature there?
Yeah, no, I would say it's in mid 80s and 68. I'm in a jacket already. Yeah.
Okay, good. Right. So how you have a captive audience of entrepreneurs from all around the world, not just in the United States. I'd love for us to first dive into that first topic. How do you become rich beyond, I guess, money?
Yeah. So the first thing I'd say is the money piece is important. So to be rich beyond money, it helps to start by having money. And when entrepreneurs can achieve financial freedom, that often is a sign that their passive income is going to exceed their monthly expenses. And once an entrepreneur can secure that level of financial independence, then often they can focus on how to make sure that their time is being spent in ways that they want so that they can generate time freedom. Because often we never feel like we could have time freedom until we have financial freedom. So get your financial freedom first, then focus on your time freedom. But what's important is when you start focusing on how you want to spend your time, one of the mistakes entrepreneurs often make is they forget about ensuring that they have meaning and purpose and community in their lives. And so the trap I've seen most entrepreneurs fall into is thinking, when I sell my business, I'll have financial freedom and I'll have time freedom, and then I'll be happy and become rich beyond money. And unfortunately, that's not often the case because they're missing that other component of meaning and purpose and community.
And maybe even having enough.
And that could be true too. Yeah, no doubt about it. Sometimes, and for some people, there's never enough. And in contrast, for other people, they don't need very much to feel like they have enough. What I would recommend to all entrepreneurs before you sell your business is to make sure you have at least 20% of your desired monthly lifestyle income coming in from passive investments that you've made while you were working in your business. And what that does is it'll allow you to test what it is you like to invest in, because inevitably you may not like the first thing that you think you're going to want to put your money into, which may be investing in other startup businesses. It may be investing in real estate. It may be investing in hard money lending. There's lots of different ways that you can invest your money for income, but you've got to figure out what you like through testing.
Mm. I've heard so many stories of just billionaires who, they seem to have enough, but oftentimes people say, like, isn't it interesting how the people who have the most often are the ones that are complaining the most? So I'd love to really dive into the idea of, when is enough enough?
It really comes down to your mindset more than anything, because everyone in EO is already at the top of the pile in terms of data and statistics. And so, enough is a personal question. And usually what I find is that without some intentionality around what it is that you want your life to look like, it's very easy to have lifestyle creep where, there was a time when you were good with, oh, if I could have 15 grand a month net of taxes, like that's more than I need. And then all of a sudden, your kids are in private school and you're going on a $25,000 vacation for a week because you're going skiing with your friends. And now, wait a minute, now I need 30,000 a month to feel like it's enough. And, I'll tell you a story. I had a client a long, long time ago, and he said, Noah, if I have 15 million, that'll be enough. And I worked with him for a year. I got him to a point where if he sold his business, he'd have 15 million. But in that time frame, he bought a second home. And the second home was in one of the most lavish areas of our country. And so he started hanging out with people where 15 million was kind of not so much. And he told me, no, now I need 25 million. And so 2 years later, I got him to a point where he could sell his business and have 25 million. But by then, things had changed again and his needs changed again. And now he needed 50 million. And a couple of years later, we got him to 50 million. And finally, thankfully, he said, okay, that's enough for me. But despite having a $50 million net worth, over the last 15 years that we've been talking about him and his friend group is much wealthier and they have their own planes. They don't just charter planes. They have their own yachts. They don't just charter yachts. And so he feels poor because of the people he hangs around with. And so I think sometimes it's, surrounding yourself with like-minded people that you feel comfortable in your own skin, you feel comfortable with your success, not just financially, but spiritually and emotionally as well.
And how does someone get there? Because it's a problem, I think, that whether or not you're making $75,000, trying to move up to 100,000, just starting there, I remember when I was working at the Getty, I was getting paid $36,000 a year. And I'm just like, if I just could make 50,000. And then, now, multi-million, and it's just, but I feel satisfied. But I see a lot of people unsatisfied. Is that something that you have to go deeper with, like a coach?
I think
Is that how they work with you?
Yeah, so we do some of that coaching for entrepreneurs. I think it's a lot about getting clarity on your goals and changing your dashboard for what your KPIs are. So I actually just posted this morning a social post in response to another EO member's question around changing your goals. And one of the goals that I always had growing up in a family where I saw that money was really the answer to a lot of problems was I want to have a lot of money. I wanted to have a $10 million net worth by the time I was 40. And I was racing in one direction and prioritizing money over other things. And when I had my first child at 30, I had become a millionaire. That was one of my goals, to be a millionaire at 30. My wife and through some discussions, kind of helped me reshape my framework to say, wait a minute, if I optimize towards having a $10 million net worth at 40, that's going to put me at a disadvantage to becoming a great father, becoming a great husband. And so what I needed to do was modify my goals to say, I want to track how many mornings am I having breakfast at home? How many evenings am I having breakfast, dinner with my family? How many nights am I sleeping in bed next to my wife? And so through that, I evolved what my measurements of success were to go beyond simply looking at how much income I was making and how much my investments were generating in returns.
That is so wise to do. You have a wise wife. And looking
Yes, no
back,
doubt about it.
you don't regret it, right?
Not at all. No, in fact, I would say, one of the reasons our partnership is great, we had the good fortune of meeting when we were teenagers, our sophomore year in college, and now we're together 29 years, married for 24 of them. We've got a 17-year-old son and a 14-year-old daughter. And I think one of the reasons our relationship has worked so well is because she has never really been focused on money. And that's really my greatest passion, is making money, talking about money, working with money, ever since I was a little kid.
You sound like Warren Buffett.
Yeah. Well, I've always had a strong desire to create value. And I think that's what all entrepreneurs share in common, is we love to solve problems, and not everybody is focused on solving money problems. We're solving a problem because it's going to generate money. But that's really been my core area of focus, is generating money by solving people's money questions and problems.
Yeah, I can tell like you're really passionate about this subject, just like Charlie Munger was, and Warren Buffett. Like even though I mean I've heard that they're still driving the same. I guess it was a Lexus that he drives, the same. He lives in a very simple home, but he's passionate about these strategies. So I'd love to go there next.
Yeah.
Share with us, the people whether or not. Well, are your tips only going to be for people in the United States, or is this for everyone in the world?
I think we could expand some of the philosophy to be global, but some of the practical applications may be US focused. And so my apologies to our international listeners. But I would say it starts with having a tax strategy. Too many of the entrepreneurs I meet, they have an account, but they don't have a tax strategy. And that's true all around the world. And the premise is that we're hiring an expert to help us prepare our compliance filings and tell the government, here's how much we owe. But the majority of the people that prepare those types of filings in the United States, certified public accountants are the most common tax preparer. They're not really tax strategists. They're not there to help you develop your strategy. And too often the entrepreneurs don't know it. And so that's really the message that I've been trying to bring to the world, is that all entrepreneurs should know their strategy. And if you don't know what it is, that means it's time to talk to somebody to figure it out.
What does a strategy look like?
Yeah, so a strategy is a way that, just like in your business, you're trying to understand, where are you now, where do you want to be, and how are you going to get there? That's what we call the 3 questions of a strategic plan. The same is true with your tax strategy. Where are you generating your income from now? What are your expenses? What are your assets? What are your liabilities? And what would you like them to be in the future? And then we could start to derive a plan for the best path to get there, optimizing for the minimum amount of taxes and the maximum amount of happiness.
And a lot of this also happens when you're ready to exit, or even now.
Even now, especially as you're making good income in the US, I would say most people need to focus on their tax strategy when their income starts getting above $500,000. And certainly by the time it reaches $1 million of taxable income, you can generate a positive return on investment from working with someone to help you develop your strategy, because you'll get an immediate return in tax savings and then a long-term return over time from compounding those savings. In different parts of the world, I'm sure the numbers are different, but it really comes down to having a level of success that puts you in a position where you're saving money on a recurring basis. So if you're consistently saving money, the question is, what's the most efficient way to save it? And in the US, for example, we promote home ownership. We promote owning rental properties. And so the tax laws give you an advantage for doing that. We also have advantages now for installing solar energy. And we have incentives for business equipment purchases. We have incentives for research and development. And so it's taking a look at, what would you do with more money? How would you use it? And then tying that back to try and get you there faster by leveraging a tax strategy.
So you invest in a lot of real estate, and I would assume it's multifamily apartments.
Yeah, most of our investments are multifamily apartments. I've invested in commercial office space. I've invested in retail shopping centers, but the vast majority has been multifamily apartment buildings. And in large part because of the tax strategies that are associated with it.
So would you recommend that path today? We're here in the end of 2024. Is that still a wise strategy?
I think real estate's been a great asset class for 100 years in not just in the U.S. but in many of the countries around the world. People love the feeling they get from owning something tangible versus owning a couple of shares of Tesla or Apple. But still, those are great investments to invest in a business. You can invest in publicly traded businesses or privately held businesses. Businesses are great investments too. And I think nowadays, what we see becoming more popular is investing in digital assets, whether it were the, digital artwork that people were creating, or certainly the different currencies that people were creating. And as you and I are talking today, Bitcoin's been the hot news since the election and the big run up that it's had. Me in particular, I am not a big believer of investing in assets that don't generate income. If I'm putting my money into something, I don't want to just only rely on being able to sell it for a higher price in the future. I want it to pay me while I own it.
Right. And what's great is, several of my friends who are in, just in my lives and also in my forum, they also manage these multifamily apartment buildings as well too. So you don't have to do it alone. Maybe you can just talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I started my career in real estate investing at the turn of the century. My wife and I bought a single family home that actually the fun story there is we got paid $40 at the closing table to buy the house. It was a brand new home. We were able to use some creative financing structures that were available at the time. And then we took that brand new house, which was a raised ranch, where the kitchen and the living room and dining room were on the second floor, along with 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. And the first floor was a garage and a living room and a bathroom. And we converted that where they had 2 storage areas. We converted it to a bedroom and a kitchen, and we converted it to a 2-family house. And we lived in half and we rented half. And then we used the money that we were receiving from the rent to pay our mortgage. And lo and behold, a couple of years later, I was able to borrow money from that house to go buy another house. And so we did that slowly but surely, trying to build our own real estate portfolio. And the challenge I had, which is to your point, was I started to get calls. It was Tuesday night. I wanted to come home and have dinner with my wife. And the tenant says, "Oh, you got to come over. My toilet's not working." Or a tenant would leave and I'd have to meet somebody on Saturday to see if they would rent it. So I started to realize that I didn't want to spend my time operating my assets. And in 2011, I shifted to buying larger investments where I had a professional manager who was on site and I didn't have to deal with the day-to-day, toilets and tenants.
Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah. Places in Las Vegas, there is no way that we're going to go there and just say, like, I don't know why your garage door isn't opening. I have no idea. So I completely
Exactly.
understand. So are you doing REITs?
I don't invest in publicly traded REITs, which are real estate investment trusts. What I tend to do is find somebody who has a deal that they want to buy. So typically, let's just say the last deal I did was a 160 unit apartment building in Cincinnati, Ohio. And the person had found this because they make 200,000 cold calls a year to owners of apartment buildings. And they found a 80-year-old owner whose children didn't want to take it over and he couldn't handle it anymore. And so this person wanted to buy the asset. They had the bank lined up to give them the debt and they just needed the money. So I said, okay, I'll give you the money. It wasn't just my money. I pass the hat around and do what's called a real estate syndication. So other people will invest 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 alongside me with my money. And together we go buy that property. And the partner who found the deal, he's going to be there running the deal. So we do it as passive investors in large scale real estate projects.
And what are the downfalls for that? Because I know that one of my entrepreneur friends had invested in a lot of real estate in Florida during the, I guess, 2006, 2007 real estate crisis. Is there a way that you can anticipate that type of cyclical downfall?
So you could anticipate that real estate will run in cycles, just like the stock market will run in cycles, and just like other assets kind of tend to run in cycles. So we have bull markets and bear markets in the stock market. Historically, real estate as an asset class has been pretty resilient. Up until the last few years, we had a historic increase in interest rates in the US, and that caused an outcome that was not positive for many multifamily unit holders.
But you're going to hang in there because, I mean, what happened to your real estate portfolio in 2007, 2008? I mean, you're here now. So
Yeah, so 2007, 2008, I had a bunch of Section 8 property, which was where my tenant's rent was being paid for by the government. And so the benefit there is the rent would never stop. The problem I had was in 2007 and 8, the values had gone down. And so the question was, should I keep paying a mortgage if the value of the property was less than the amount that I owed to the bank? And in my case, I had two homes that I said to the bank, hey, you know what, you take it. I don't want to pay you anymore. And so they took those two homes, but the other homes that I owned, they were fine. And I would say more recently, the same kind of thing is true. If you're investing in, a diversified portfolio, whether it's in the stock market or in the real estate market, one of the benefits of diversification is, you'll have winners and losers. And so there were certain assets that I bought in 2021 and 2022 that we had to give back to the bank because interest rates went up too quickly. We couldn't cover the debt service. And unfortunately, we lost money, which is a horrible thing to have happen. But over the course of 50 transactions, they have a handful of losers. It's kind of just playing the law of the averages.
yeah, and it's part of that roller coaster ride as an entrepreneur. I mean, that's why we have to know why we're doing this, that we have meaning and purpose. You're really helping people be successful. So it's just sort of like playing a game.
I love the game of making money. My favorite game as a kid was Monopoly. And so I've been able as an adult to play it in real life. And it's a fun game, and it's fun to improve communities. A lot of the investing I've done historically has been to take properties where there's gangs and drugs and, poor security, poor infrastructure, and take those properties and kick out the bad elements and put up lighting and fencing and security and rehabilitate the apartments and make them nice enough that, nurses and managers and teachers and firemen and police officers want to come and live there and give them a nice home to live in.
I mean, that is such a wonderful thing that you're doing. You also talked a little bit about life insurance.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit
So
about your strategies around that.
yeah, life insurance is an interesting asset class because, the only people who educate entrepreneurs about life insurance are life insurance agents who make a commission when the insurance is purchased. And as a result of that dynamic, I believe there's a lot of distrust in the marketplace between the educator and the consumer of the education because, there's this inherent conflict of interest. But if you can get past that and you could find someone you trust to understand how insurance is going to work, obviously the basic premise of life insurance is if you die unexpectedly and prematurely, you want your family or your beneficiaries to be able to live financially without the contributions that you were expected to make. That's just one use case for insurance, and that's a use case that pretty much everybody has, especially when they have a young family. But what we like to do is take advantage of the tax code. And one of the unique parts of the tax code is if you pay $1 for life insurance and die the next day and your family gets $1 million, that's all income tax free in the US. And so it's a very unique structure that doesn't exist in other places in our tax code. So sometimes we're using life insurance as a vehicle for people to make investments. So it could be as complicated as a private placement life insurance policy. So I had an EO member that approached me last year. He sold his company for $20 million. And I was able to help show him how to save some money on taxes. But one of the things he was already doing was investing in a private debt fund. So he was putting an investment in with a hedge fund, and that fund was loaning out that money and generating 1% per month in returns. But as a California resident, half of the income that he was earning had to go back to the government. And so what we showed him was he could put that same exact investment inside of a life insurance policy and pay no tax. Now that insurance policy costs 1%, but instead of getting 12% and only keeping 6 because half went to the government, now he could get 12%, he'd pay 1 for the insurance and keep 11. So it's a unique way to use a structure in our tax code. But there's many others. I'm happy to share more if you want.
Yes, please keep on sharing. We're here to
So
learn.
yeah, another interesting use case. So most entrepreneurs don't know that the bank will lend you money to buy life insurance. And so just like when I buy real estate, I use the bank to give me a loan to finance most of it, and the rest is what we call equity. We could do the same thing with life insurance. So I have a life insurance policy. I happen to have 2, one on myself, one on my wife, and I paid about 25% of the premiums, and the bank paid 75%. And the reason I want the bank to pay it is because I believe in the long run, what I could do with my money will generate a greater return than how much the bank is going to charge me. So, historically, the bank is charging, something like the 10-year treasury rate plus 1 or 2%. And I believe my investments historically have averaged, 10% above that treasury rate.
I had no idea. That is just new to me.
Yeah, it's new to most people. And it's surprising to them because they wonder, well, why would a bank loan you money to buy this insurance? And the answer is quite simple. It's the same as why the bank loans you money to buy real estate. It's because they have good collateral. They know if you die, they're going to get paid from the death benefit. And if you live, basically the equity you're putting in, the check that you're writing, is enough so that if you don't pay the premiums, the bank can close the insurance out and get paid their loan in full.
I do you know Dan Sullivan,
Yeah, of course. I was
strategic
part of
coach?
Strategic Coach and the 10X program as well.
So you know how he wants to live to like 127 or something like that. He's a book on that. So one of my friends who's really interested in longevity, and he also is in insurance, he's coming up with these fantastic insurance plans where if you live to a certain age, let's say 95 or 100, that you will get something like $50 million. Like and he was just like, he had to go to his company, I think it's Northwestern Mutual, to see if he could do that. He's also a former EO member. But have you heard of that? Like, because people are living longer, that they're getting life insurance, at longer ages. I mean,
Yeah,
higher life
so
expectancy.
I believe, we do our planning for all of our clients to 105. That's just our baseline financial projections are to 105. That's what we want to assume as a minimum. Now, for some people like myself, I would like to live to 124 because then I'll see the turn of the century again. And I figure it's a nice goal to have out there. And like Dan Sullivan, I would like to die on stage in my best performance, as he says it. And I believe having that longevity mindset gives you a different perspective on what's the end look like and how to have a life that's rich beyond money, not in the future, but how do you bring that into the present? Because if you're thinking of sacrifice now for a future benefit, well, that future may never come, or it may be a very long future. Because if I first retired from operating a business at 38, and my plan was to just be a professional investor for the rest of my life because I thought that would be enough engagement for me, but it wasn't. And, I realized I needed more action. I needed a team. I needed to create more value myself, not just put my money to work and watch my money grow. And I think, it's important to find things that will keep you stimulated, where you're going to have not only excitement, but also agitation, because a life of leisure does not satisfy the entrepreneur.
No. So what is your typical day like? You just said that you took a walk this morning. What does your
Yeah,
day look
so
like?
typically I have Mondays are kind of internal meeting days. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I have meetings with clients, speaking engagements, kind of work stuff. In my day, I usually have a 7:30 a.m. walk where I'm doing a walk and talk. So either I'm meeting someone in person or I'm on the phone with somebody. And then 9 to 10 is my shower time. And then 10 to 4:30 is my work time. But on Wednesdays, I spend the mornings with my wife. and we usually go for a walk together. We go to the beach, we get massages, we'll go out to lunch. And then I'm back at my desk for a 3 o'clock L10 weekly meeting with the executive team. And that's usually over at 4:30. And then on Fridays, I kind of keep my calendar clear to put in the things that are exciting and rewarding to me. So today we're recording this podcast. That's a fun thing for me to do. I had earlier this morning a call with someone who's making $100 million this year and trying to figure out what should he do with his tax situation. That's a fun call for me. So I kind of meet with people that want to talk about their life and their current situation. Those are usually my Fridays.
So you said L10, so you do EOS.
Of
Maybe
course.
share with everyone who may not be familiar with EOS what L10 is and EOS.
Yeah, so EOS is the Entrepreneur's Operating System, popularized by Gino Wickman, who is an EO member. And Gino had worked with Vern Harnish, one of EO's founders, when Vern created Scaling Up, and he evolved that system into his own. And it's essentially an operating system for how small businesses like ours, our EO member community, how can we install process into our small business without having to recreate the wheel? So we could adapt a system that's been utilized by now thousands and thousands of companies and just pull from their toolkit. And it's an easy way for me to communicate effectively with my team, so everyone knows, what their LMA, leading, managing, and accountable for. Everybody knows, what their right person in the right seat is. Everybody knows the tools of delegating and elevating. Everybody understands how we're going to communicate at our weekly meetings with our issues and discussions and solutions. And it's a systematic approach to running a small business for people that don't have their own system. And what I like in part, I wouldn't say necessarily most about it, but one of the things I appreciate about EOS is that there's a common language. So when I recruit someone from another company and they were running on EOS, there's an instant plug-in, the same way that if they were in Excel, if they were in a Microsoft Office, then they're familiar with our Microsoft Office suite, versus somebody who comes out of a Google environment. That's not to say Microsoft's better than Google or Google's better than Microsoft or EOS is better than Scaling Up, or Bloom Growth is one of the newer models that has come out recently by another EO member, Todd Smart. But there's plenty of systems. And what I would encourage every EO member to do is have a system.
Well, I think that that's absolutely right. But the thing is with Google Docs and because I'm on a Mac and Excel, it's very similar. But
Yeah.
I think that what you're also saying too is there's also open book management, right? And so which is totally different from EOS. So yeah, I get it. It's just so much easier to understand. One of my favorite EOS things is making sure that the employee is in the right place. Do they get it? Do they want it? Are they competent? So see if we can talk the same language. You see?
Right?
Yeah.
GWC.
Yeah, exactly. GWC. So tell us a little bit about estate planning. A lot of new entrepreneurs that I know haven't figured out their estate planning yet. What suggestions would you give to them?
Yeah, I think there's two parts to estate planning. One is what if you live, and one is what if you die. And so even though most people think of an estate plan, if they're thinking about it at all, as what happens when I die, there's also some challenges if you live but you can't speak for yourself. And unfortunately for entrepreneurs, if we can't speak for ourselves or we can't use our hands, we may not be able to process payroll. We may not be able to pay our vendor bills. And so we need something that's called the power of attorney in the US. In your country of origin, it may be something different, but likely set up in a similar way, where someone needs the ability to speak for you and act for you if you can't do it on your own. And those are typically done by the same groups of people that help you figure out what should happen with your stuff if you die unexpectedly and prematurely, because the government has a plan. Every government says, if you don't have your own plan, we've got a plan for you. But if you rely on the government's plan, it may not be the plan that you'd actually want. And often, certainly is the case in the US, it's an expensive plan, because probate is what they call it in the US when you die. either without a will or intestate. And probate is the process to transfer the assets from your name, which if you're dead, you're not here, so it now goes into your estate, and to pass it through to your beneficiaries. So the basic premise of an estate plan is to make sure if you can't speak for yourself, someone can speak for you. If you can't act for yourself, someone can act for you. And if you die, when you die, because we're all going to die at some point, but assuming you die unexpectedly and prematurely, you have a plan in place for what's supposed to happen. The most important piece of that for all of us as entrepreneurs is what's going to happen on Monday. So, we die over the weekend, people show up on Monday, you need a plan. So I have a fire drill actually that you can run. If anybody wants it, they can email me at noah@freedomfamilyoffice.com and just write fire drill, and I'll be sure to send you that exercise. It's just a series of questions that you want to contemplate so that someone can access your cell phone. Someone has the ability to make payroll. Somebody knows who's responsible for communicating to your customers, who's responsible for communicating internally. There's a lot of questions that we should all be prepared for, the same way we need to be prepared in case of a fire, in case of a flood, in case of a natural disaster, in case of a cyber security attack that is against our data.
Have you always been this proactive and forward thinking?
Yeah, I believe one of my strengths is that I love planning. And so I created it as a vocation because I always wanted to prepare for the future. As a little kid, my parents were divorced when I was 3, and I lived with my mom, and she would always have 2 jobs, sometimes 3. And I saw how everything was a struggle. Every time I knew it was payday. And in contrast, when I'd spend the weekends with my dad, he had his own business. He was an accountant. He was able to take us out to dinner. We could order dessert. And if it were raining on the weekend, we would go to the movies, and then we'd go bowling. And it was like, wow, my dad had all these options that my mother never had. And so as a little kid, I realized I want a plan to have those options for myself. And I became, I guess, it was ingrained in me that the discipline of planning was going to create the freedom of choice.
Yeah, I was talking to one of my other entrepreneurs that I coach, and he was talking about when a lot of that is a driving force. When you come from this lack, it really is motivating, but sometimes he thinks like to a fault, because that was all he was thinking about. Did that happen to you?
Yeah, well, that's why I was sharing how my wife kind of helped me evolve my goal setting process, because I had a single track mindset. And in part, the KPIs of finance are so easy to measure. The KPIs of happiness are a bit harder. And one of the biggest challenges I've faced as a parent is not knowing whether or not what I'm doing is having the outcome that I want, which is a happy, healthy, productive adult child. And I won't know until my kids are, out of the house and on their own and hopefully independent and building a life that not only they're proud of, but one that, incredibly proud of as well.
Great. Yes. And then KPIs are?
Yeah, for me, it's been time, right? So making sure I'm spending the time where I wanted. I started working only on school days, maybe a decade ago. And then integrating a lot of vacation time, which for me is like the kind of my most fun time. My wife and I love to travel. I've been to over 70 countries, and I really enjoy seeing new places, and my wife does as well. And, kind of sharing the world with our kids, having memorable experiences. That's always been high on our priority list. And then also just being present and being available and making sure that I'm there and available and present.
Yeah. So for anyone listening, KPI stands for Key Performance Indicator, and it's basically a way for us to measure whether or not we're being successful in whatever it does. It doesn't have to just be business. So
Yeah.
if there's an entrepreneur listening today that wants to take control of their finances, because it's rough out there, what are 3 actionable steps they can take right now?
The first is knowing what you have. A lot of entrepreneurs don't even know what they have. they've got, I just just had somebody tell me, oh, I just found this 401k from an old employer, it's 10 grand. It's like, oh, that's nice. But, you should take an inventory and make sure you have a balance sheet. You wouldn't run your business without a profit and loss statement. And if, that's certainly an important thing. If you don't have that now, you should please have that done at least once a month, so that you're seeing on a monthly basis, here's how much money came in, here's how much money went out, and here's what it went out to. You need that for your business. We say that what we measure gets managed. And so the same is true in your personal life. I've kept a personal balance sheet since I'm about 10 years old. I always knew how much money I had in the bank, how much cash I had in my wallet. And then I started investing in stocks when I was 13. And actually, I guess I started buying my first stocks when I was 9. But then I had like my own account when I was 13 after my bar mitzvah. I started investing my bar mitzvah money like so many of my Jewish peers, and learning how to invest my capital. But I would say you got to know what you have, know what you own. And then if you don't currently measure your income and expenses personally, I would encourage you to do that and take a look at where you're actually spending your money. You may be surprised. So maybe that would all be one, but yeah.
Number 2.
So number 2, I would say once you know that's kind of where you are, I would say start setting your goals for where you want to be and figure out, when is it that you want? Do you want to have a certain amount of cash savings? That's usually the number one goal that I recommend to entrepreneurs that are beginning in their journey of financial independence, is to have accumulated cash for at least 6 months worth of their personal expenses. So if you're spending $6,000 a month, try and have 36 grand in cash saved up somewhere. That's like obviously you got to be out of debt and have your six months worth of savings. But longer term, what you really want to do is think through your long-term strategy. What is it you're really trying to accomplish? And start making your action plan to get you there. So what would be the way? The great book is The 4 Disciplines of Execution. So what that book talks about is not just setting the goal, but what are the actions that you can measure that will indicate that you're taking steps towards the goal. So you could call them micro goals, but they're really more about the activity. So, saving $100 a week is a goal, and it could be, the activity could be transferring $100 from my checking account to my investment account every week. But
Automatically.
Automatic. Exactly. And just setting up your systems and processes so that your behaviors are more likely to be consistent. What James Clear is the Atomic Habits author, and what he talks about when you're forming a new habit is to try and create a habit sandwich. So take something that you're already doing, insert your new habit between that and something else that you're already doing. So if you already produce a monthly financial statement and you already share those results with your team, well, maybe there's a step in between. Before you send it to the team, you're inserting this new step of transferring a portion of your profits to your investment account.
I love James Clear. And I love like how it's so simple. Like, you're going to go to the kitchen anyway to go grab coffee. So why not have your vitamins there so that you can take your vitamins while you're drinking water? I think he's a genius. And I love that you applied it with in the financial sense. And I also love Steve Covey, the 4 disciplines of execution. So see, all the entrepreneurs know like this lingo. So if you don't, whoever's listening, if you don't have any entrepreneurs that are surrounding you, just listen to the podcast, because there's so much wisdom here. Okay. So what trends or opportunities do you see in creating wealth that we can plan for in the next 5 years? We have a new president. So what do you see in the future?
I don't see much that's different from the past, but what I would say is the trend to latch onto is going to be technology. And what we've seen over the last decade is the increase in technology making things cost less. And so one of the challenges we've been faced with globally since the pandemic has been cost inflation. And that means the price of goods is going up. But when we look at things related to technology, what we can achieve is kind of steadily going down in terms of the output per input. So we can create more output from less input, whether that's energy, we're getting more energy from the sun with the solar panels we're creating now. We're getting more computing power from the same number of chips. We're seeing the progression of artificial intelligence. And that, I would say, is the wave over the next 5 years, that if we're not integrating artificial intelligence into our business process, we may not have a business in 5 years. So I would say, if you're not already riding that wave, pay attention and close attention, because the failure to integrate the ability to leverage technology for the benefit of your customer is going to be key to ensuring your survival.
It's so true. One of my other entrepreneur friends is saying she has a law practice. She's saying that in 3 years, she's not going to have her law practice anymore because of AI.
I just read that one of the OpenAI executives said on a stage that they can now do $8,000 worth of legal work in 30 seconds.
And there's still a trust issue, but now with Perplexity, it actually gives you the sources. Perplexity.ai is basically a search engine very similar to ChatGPT, but it will actually give you the sources, because before, when they were doing those legal, contracts on ChatGPT, they were making up case studies, but they solved that quick.
And the technology is progressing so fast that if you're not paying attention, you may in some ways get blown by and not have the capability to understand how you're going to get started. Yeah. So we've had an AI task force in our business for the past year and a half, and their job is to continuously look at the tools and technology that are in the marketplace to figure out what we can integrate. And in my business, there's not that much that we've had to integrate to our processes. We really are leveraging, for the most part, the large language models to help review emails, help us with campaigns, email campaigns, topics that we should discuss on social media, writing. But it hasn't really taken over our business. But what we see next, and what I see among my friends, is really the ability to generate content at the click of a button that's relevant to our audience without having to invest a significant amount of time or effort. And it could be, my face, your face, our voice, and that's coming fast and furious. And that's exciting to me, because I love to hear myself talk, but I'd even love it more if someone else could talk for me.
Well, you're efficient. So you've accomplished so much already. What's next for Freedom Family Office?
So I just spun out of my family office a startup called Wealth Thrive. It's a combination of wealth and thrive in one word, wealththrive.com. Our website's not even live yet. And what it is I found that so many of my entrepreneur friends, they didn't have a tax strategy, as I had shared at the outset, and they weren't sure where to turn. And as a family office, we have a certain perception in the marketplace. Many people don't even know what family offices are. We're typically either a single family office, which is one family's capital being utilized by a team to implement their own investment strategy, or a multifamily office, which is what I have at Freedom Family Office, where I'm pooling other entrepreneurial families together, and together we're making better investment decisions, both through publicly traded investments, private investments, and then, of course, the tax strategy that we're advising them on. But we're a team of accountants, lawyers, and financial planners working on behalf of our clients. And one of the things I saw as an opportunity in the marketplace was to really hone in on the tax strategy component, so that entrepreneurs that maybe, I say they're rich, they just don't have any money. They have a valuable company that's producing a large taxable income, but that cash flow is going right back in their business. Well, now you could leverage the team I've created to generate your own tax strategy and get a massive return on investment without having to worry about the family office piece, which is typically driven by an asset under management model where we're investing in stocks and bonds and charging the kind of typical 1% to manage them. So at WealthThrive, we built something totally different. It's a fixed fee model. People pay $25,000 for the first year and $10,000 a year after that. And they have this incredibly capable team available to work on their behalf to help them not just save money on taxes, but ultimately to become rich beyond money by focusing not just on the finance, but also the qualitative aspects so that they can get their financial freedom, their time freedom, and still have their meaning and purpose.
And when should someone sign up for WealthThrive? Because I also have friends who've sold their businesses for $150 million. Is that something that they could do too? Or
yeah. So I would say we typically work with 7-figure income and 8-figure net worth entrepreneurs. That's kind of our starting point because we want to make sure they're getting that positive ROI on the time and money they're investing in learning what it is that we have to share, because most entrepreneurs come to us with very little knowledge about what opportunities are out there to do sophisticated planning.
Okay, and let's end with one more question. What's one thing about you that might surprise people, whether it's a hobby, a passion, or accomplishment?
Surprising. I love watching TV.
Yeah.
And actually, when I retired the first time, what got me back to working was I found I was watching too much TV because it's so. And just yesterday, I was with Chip Conley. He's for the Modern Elder Academy.
I love Chip Conley.
And he said that the average retiree watches 47 hours of TV a week. And it resonated with me because I would say after I sold my last operating business in 2014, I found myself sitting in the movie theater, 6-7 hours at a time, just binge watching on Netflix. And then I told my wife, I was like, this is not a healthy life. I really got to change it. But I still, every night, one of the favorite part of my day is when my, wife lays on my lap and we watch a show together. And that's really one of my favorites.
So what's on your top Netflix list? Like we should watch.
We're watching. We just finished The Diplomat. I thought that was really
so good.
Yeah, that
You
was
mean
a good
second
show.
season? I haven't started second season.
Yeah. Just finished it.
Really? Wow, you really binged that.
Yeah, we just watched Outer Banks. That there's a couple seasons of that.
Is it good?
Yeah, I like it. It's fun adventure series. We tend to watch Law and Order. That's like all those episodes, the crime drama. And I just saw the Martha Stewart documentary. That was a really good one.
I'm watching just the beginning. Is it worth it? Okay.
Oh, definitely worth it. Yeah. I mean, she's the first female billionaire, self-made billionaire. I think, she went to prison. What an amazing story and a comeback story. And maybe that means she could be president one day too.
Well, I heard that she didn't like it, so that means it must be good. Right? Because it's probably not perfect or something like that. Yeah. So if anyone wants to contact you, how can they contact you to work with you?
Go to talkabouttax.com, and when you're there, you could just fill out a short form, and then that'll give you access to my calendar. If you want to email me, it's noah@freedomfamilyoffice.com. And I'm on social media. I post a lot of content on social around wealth and taxes and real estate and lifestyle. And I travel a lot, so I post, some travel pictures over on Facebook. Or if you connect with me on LinkedIn, it's more of the business content, or on Instagram.
I'm so glad we connected. I know that we were I was just texting people randomly on LinkedIn. Thank you for responding. And I really appreciate you being on the EO podcast.
With pleasure. I love EO. EO's been great to me. I'm a 12-year member. I've been part of the Deal Exchange leadership team for 6 years. And, I've found that what you get out of it, what you put into it.
Absolutely. So everyone contact Noah if you need help with your estate planning. Well, he's not going to be doing the work. He's got a whole team. He's busy taking a walk, which is what we all want. Thank you so much, Noah. You're the best.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Awesome.